Hello, everyone. I'd like to give you a preview of the perfect law of liberty, the New Testament for the perfect law of liberty that will give us freedom from every wind of doctrine of men in the second age of the kingdom of heaven. When Satan is revealed, and here's some part of the foreword that we'll be putting in this New Testament. When Satan is revealed as the man of sin, 2 Thessalonians 2:3, and we begin to understand the mysteries of the kingdom, Matthew 13:11. Then we can ask for wisdom from above, James 1:5, to restore the perfect law of liberty. This then is the beginning of the end of the apostasy out of Christianity. We now start contending for the faith and the restoration of the perfect law of liberty over the next 40 years. Micah 7:15, 1 Corinthians 13:9-12. As we prepare for the second age of the kingdom, Ephesians 2:7, and freedom from Gnosticism, denominationalism, socialism, all the isms of men. The truth, Christ, he's going to rule over this earth with all authority. He is going to be in charge, so that will free us from every wind of doctrine of men. Adam and Eve in the garden. This is important to the story of redemption. In the Garden of Eden, there was first only objective truth from God. And instead of giving to Satan his body, he sent him in the body of a snake, a serpent, early, so that he could tempt Adam and Eve with subjective truth of men. So when Adam and Eve had subjective truth, remember Eve looked at the fruit and she thought it looked good, so that was subjective truth. She decided to obey that. So they were cast out of the garden, and that's the reason Adam and Eve cast out of the garden, because of subjective truth of men. And so for 6,000 years, humanity has had to be under subjective truth of men. Now, and so spiritual warfare was between objective truth of God and the subjective truth of men. But in order for mankind to be ignorant and not understand how simple spiritual warfare was, mankind couldn't understand spiritual warfare to remain in Gnosticism. And so God gave to man a strong delusion, and he hid objective truths from God. One of those objective truths that was hidden from mankind for 6,000 years was that Satan was a man. And so right before the first age of the kingdom and before the second age of the kingdom, Satan will and is identified as the man of sin, 2 Thessalonians 2:3. So that during the Christian dispensation, which is divided into two ages, men could come out of ignorance, Acts 17, verse 30, and understand the details of spiritual warfare. But no spiritual enlightenment happens until the Lord is ready. I could tell you over and over again that Satan is the man of sin, but until the Lord is ready, you will not believe it. Now, the patience of Job. Job suffered when the Lord removed some objective truth by stepping back and allowing Satan. Then Satan was in his body in the book of Job, and it's the oldest book in the Bible. So Satan would tempt Job, but he couldn't do that when Christ was there. And so Christ stepped back so Satan could tempt. He could say so that Christ would remove his protection, the protections of objective truth from Job. And then Satan tempted Job with subjective truth again. Now, Job made a mistake of questioning God. Why would God harm him? He didn't understand it was Satan and it was subjective truth that was harming him. But Job questioned God, and that was a little bit of a problem. Now, modern men, we sometimes question God, and we say, why human suffering? Why does the all-loving, kind, merciful God allow human suffering? Well, he allows Gnosticism so that humanity will in time come to realize and recognize that we need a perfect Savior, we need a perfect King, we need a perfect Bible. And so that's the reason for human suffering in this world, because Christ is going to come for 1,000 years and reign over this earth and rule over it, and we'll be free from subjective truth of men, from that kind of suffering, from the suffering that's caused by subjective truth of men. Now, the ways of the Lord is high as the heavens above the ways of men, Isaiah 55. And truth from God is exceeding abundantly greater than we ever imagined it could be, Ephesians 3:20. No man could ever stand up or argue against God, as seen when Jesus was on this earth. God knows the numbers of the hairs of our head. Indeed, he knows who all will be called by him to be Christians before he created the world. Meaning that because he knows the choices we would make in different situations, he places all of humanity, both the righteous and the unrighteous at times, places and circumstances that would be best for all of humanity. Not only does he determine the times we live in, but the times of all those throughout our lifetimes and generations forward and back. So our family members, the friends, associates, all people in our lives, he determined the times that they would be on this earth, both the righteous and the unrighteous. Top of that, he molds us as clay to do his will. For example, I already mentioned, you can't know that Satan was the man of sin, that he was on this earth as a demon in the first century, a dead spirit of dead evil man. That he was a man, and that spiritual warfare is between objective truth from God and subjective truth of men. You couldn't know that. You couldn't know that at all. Let me qualify that just a bit. If you are influential and could influence a lot of people to understanding this truth, then you were not able to understand the implications of what it meant that Satan was a man, because God was in control of what you thought about spiritual. The whole world, in fact, for 6,000 years, men didn't understand what spiritual warfare is. God controls us as clay. So that for the scheme of redemption, for the benefit of all humanity, he's long suffering, not willing for any to perish. So he puts us through suffering because he wants to save our souls. So now Satan is identified as the man of sin, and we were all in ignorance of that, but now we have a starting point. And I found in reading and studying the Bible, it's just clear to me that Satan was a man of sin. That's because it was my job. I needed to see these things. It was your job to not believe that Satan was a man of sin. And so God has a job, a role for all of us. He determines not only individually what we know and understand, but remember, leaders of our nation. He determines who rules over us. And remember Romans chapter 13. So he controls that. Donald J. Trump is a modern Cyrus the Great, or Cyrus the Great foreshadowed Donald J. Trump. Why? God is in control. He controls who's the president and what's going on in our nation. And Cyrus the Great was important because he delivered the children of Israel from Babylon captivity. Well, Donald Trump's involved in freeing us from denominationalism, from the apostasy of Gnosticism in today's world. All Gnosticism, socialism, atheism, and the deep state and everything in the world today. Now, that doesn't mean Donald Trump's righteous, or it doesn't mean he's unrighteous. God just molds us as clay. He uses the righteous and the unrighteous to deal with the world. The founding fathers of our nation, they knew some things about objective truth because God molds men as clay. We have the Declaration of Independence that have some objective truths of God that denominational Bibles do not have in them. That all men are created equal. There's to be no respect of persons. We needed the Declaration of the Constitution because we didn't have the perfect law of liberty. That kept us in freedom, gave us some freedoms by the checks and balances, because God is in control. He molds us as clay. And so it was always our fate. God determined before the foundation of the world that we would be a democratic republic nation. That means that Christ would deal with all the moral issues and men would deal with those matters that we could. Again, we suffered in this nation. We're suffering right now in this nation. Why? So that hopefully most Americans will realize we need the perfect law of liberty to free us from every wind of doctrine of men. Now I want to share with you the cover of the New Testament that should be out by next Sunday. That's the 21st of March. So the 21st of March, we're going to have this available on hardback and paperback and EPUB. If you're interested in having the New Testament that is part of the Bible that will free you from every wind of the doctrine of men. Now remember, we have in part, that means it's going to take us 40 years to get the Bible as a part of us and to edit it and contend for the faith and get ready. But we have all of God's word. We just need to understand it better, and we need to edit it better, and we need to make it a part of our lives. So it'll take 40 years for us to do that. as we approach the second age of the kingdom of heaven. But anyway, here's a copy of the cover of the book. If you have some suggestions on the cover, some things you might like or dislike better, we can still edit that if you want to get back with me on it. But anyway, we have the Matrix picture in the background here. And take the red pill, and that's what it is. We've been in Matrix. We've been in the spiritual dark ages. God has kept us there, keep us ignorant about spiritual matters, about spiritual warfare, so that denominationalism could be weak. Denominations could exist. Denominationalism could exist. Why do we need that? We need that so that men could stand up against God. We need the conflict. Men could not have crucified Christ without denominational Bible, without being ignorant enough. For the scheme of redemption requires ignorance of men. And because the evil men are ignorant, righteous men have to be ignorant as well, or we would be straightening them out. We would be telling them about objective truth of God. And so even the righteous have had to suffer through persecution in times of Gnosticism. The New Testament of the Bible from God that will free mankind from denominational Bibles and every wind of doctrine of men in the second age of the kingdom. Take the red pill. Again, we've got the matrix scene on the back, but also this passage in John 8:32. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. From Pillar and Ground of Truth Publishing Company, Wellington, Texas, 79095. And we are dividing up our time, working some in Independence, Missouri as well. And then I will include our online site where you can read through the Bible there online, of course, for free, therodofiron.org. And then we have an email address, therodofiron.org at protonmail.com. Again, this should be out by March the 21st. So let us know what you think about that, and we will let you know more about our publication later, but we look forward to getting this. We have some out there now, but every time we edit and every time we publish, of course, there are many things we learn as we read through the Bible and go through the Bible. We're continuing for the faith. We're finding out more and more. So the restoration process takes some time, and we'll call this the first edition, as we are going to just identify it as the perfect law of liberty, just the Bible from God, the Holy Bible. We're going to start going back to the Holy Bible. This is the Holy Bible. Denominational Bibles are not the Holy Bible. We're going to reclaim the Bible from God, the New Testament of the Bible from God. It's going to free mankind from denominational Bibles and every wind of doctrine of men.